While increasing his strength, Fei also issued orders and got Chambord to start to prepare for the expedition. Before Emperor Karamov of Anji died, he had revealed that a god protected the Anji Empire. Also, Fei made some shocking findings when he watched the battle between Emperor Karamov of Anji and Emperor Yasin of Zenit. Those vague phantoms appeared from Emperor Karamov of Anji's body surprised Fei, so he had to go to Anji Empire and confirm some of his findings. Since this expedition might unveil some confidential information that was critical for him, Fei wasn't planning to bring the troops of Zenit. He was going to rely on the military of Chambord alone on this one. Therefore, this expedition was the first time in the history of Chambord that the kingdom was having a large-scale military operation outside its parent empire, so it was emphasized and had top priority. After the king issued the order, all the officials of Chambord, either big or small, got to a level of busyness that they never experienced before, and Chambord moved rapidly and precisely like a well-oiled machine. Also, the military started to actively select and sieve through soldiers. The army of Chambord now had 20,000 soldiers, and they were all elites who had been through extensive training. According to the order of the king, only the elites who were extremely loyal and were stronger than 3-star could participate in this expedition. This expedition wasn't a military secret, so Fei didn't keep it confidential and hide it from others. Soon, all the forces and kingdoms in the Zenit Empire learned about this. The news spread around the region like tornadoes, and all the empires within 500,000 kilometers of Zenit got the information that the Zenit Empire was going to send a troop to the Anji Empire. As a result, the atmosphere of the relatively peaceful northern region of Azeroth became tense, and many eyes that had different motives looked toward Chambord. All the forces in the northern region of Azeroth paid close attention to the development of the situation. It was evident that this would be a war that was going to affect the entire northern region. Even though the Zenit Empire's military power and population weren't on par with some of the super empires, its influence in the region was ranked number 1 after Emperor Yasin became a demigod. The Anji Empire rose in power quickly, and they believed in a military dictatorship. It could be said that all the citizens of Anji could turn into soldiers when necessary. Although Emperor Karamov of Anji died in battle, the strength of this empire couldn't be ignored. If Emperor Yasin, who was a demigod, didn't move, the Anji Empire still had a fighting chance against a troop of Zenit. In the grand scheme of things, this war was going to have an immeasurable influence on the political sphere and power dynamics in the northern region of Azeroth. With the chaos of Azeroth as the background, this war seemed crucial. After 20 days, Fei's assassin character entered Nightmare Mode level 80, which was equivalent to low-tier full moon in the real world. With the mysterious assassin skills, the items created by the mad scientist's laboratory, and his understanding of the Sun-class realm, Fei was confident enough to battle a Sun-class lord as a low-tier full moon assassin. Except for that, he also got a few good items. He got 2 components of the Natalia's Odium item set, which was suitable for assassins, and these 2 items were Natalia's Mark, Scissor Sueya, and Natalia's Shadow, Loricated Mail. They were now a part of Fei's prized collection. At the same time, the mythical altar had finally purified the Hell Mode Worldstone that Fei got from his barbarian character after close to 3 months. Its size was reduced by more than half, and it was now a pure, sky blue crystal that was radiating dreamy light. This purified crystal was invaluable. After thinking for a while, Fei decided to keep it in Sky Castle as the power source, so he placed it in the God-tier mechanism in the Godly King Palace on the central Godly Mountain, providing this great city with almost an unlimited amount of energy. According to Akra and Kane's estimations, this worldstone could last for about 1,000 years when this city was being utilized at maximum capacity. The Nightmare Mode Worldstone that Fei got as a barbarian was being used as the power source of this magnificent city before, and now it was used as the power source of Chambord City after it was replaced. For 5 days, Fei, Kane, and Akra set up a lot of magic defensive arrays and strengthened the city using semi-god tier runes, making Chambord City as close to a metal city as possible. After everything was put in place, no one below the Sun-class realm could directly break through Chambord City's defense. When all of this was set up, the military of Chambord also finished the selection process and gathered. Brooke selected 1,000 soldiers who were stronger than 3-star, and they were going on the expedition with the king. Although it seemed like the number of soldiers was low, the strength of this troop was shocking. If they were correctly commanded, they could defeat and crush a main battle legion directly. Out of the gold saints of Chambord, only Faye's guard, Torres, would go with the king. The rest of the gold saints were asked to stay in Chambord and protect the kingdom. Faye didn't think the Ormondians had forgotten that their two princes had fallen in Zenith. Also, the Xianxia of Ormond that was known as the Overlord of the Sky was captured by Chambord. So they must hate the Chambord kingdom and the king of Chambord dearly. Except for the fact that the situation on the Azeroth continent was unstable, the Ormond Empire probably didn't try to avenge itself merely because its leaders didn't find a good opportunity yet. If Faye left Chambord and Zenith in high profile with a troop, some reckless and bold characters would try to come to Chambord City and mess around. Therefore, Faye didn't want to take too many high-level warriors with him. Before going on the expedition, Faye had to go to St. Petersburg and report to Emperor Yasin. Although the Zenith Empire didn't need to send soldiers, a lot of supplies and resources would be required once the war began. Faye had to make sure that Zenith was going to bear all the cost. Otherwise, it was going to be a huge expenditure for Chambord, and it would increase the burden on the shoulders of Chambordians. Faye wanted to bring little Luffy back to the Marshal St. Mountain in St. Petersburg, but this little guy fell in love with Xianxia and stayed with Captain Sparrow and Captain Barbassa like their little tail, asking them all kinds of questions and wanting to stay no matter what. Since Faye also wanted to hone this little guy, he let him stay in Chambord City. When Faye went to St. Petersburg, he didn't get to meet Emperor Yasin again. It was heard that this new demigod was in seclusion cultivation, declining everyone's request for meetings. Even Elder Prince Arshavin, Second Prince Dominguez, and Elder Princess Tanasha hadn't seen Emperor Yasin for 3 months. Elder Prince Arshavin, who had control of the Imperial Military Headquarters, hosted the meeting and received Faye in the Grand Hall. Their talk was pleasant. Since Emperor Yasin decided on the expedition to the Angie Empire before he went into his seclusion cultivation, the Imperial Military Headquarters couldn't push back. Zenith's god of war Arshavin was shocked to learn that Faye was only bringing 1,000 soldiers on this expedition. From the standpoint of Zenith's interest, he was going to give Faye control of 2 main battle legions, which was about 150,000 soldiers, but the king politely declined. After that, the Imperial Military Headquarters didn't make it hard for Faye, and the Elder Prince waved his hand and agreed to the invoice that Faye prepared before coming here, not trying to bargain and reduce the supplies and resources that Chambord asked for. After staying in St. Petersburg for a day and organizing all the things at the Marshal St. Mountain and the letter office, Faye rushed back to Chambord City. What Faye didn't know was that all kinds of rumors about the king of Chambord losing influence were passed around St. Petersburg after he left. Some people said that Emperor Yasin was displeased by the king of Chambord's dominance, and that was why he only let the king of Chambord bring the soldiers of Chambord on this expedition, trying to use the power of Angie to weaken the strength of Chambord. Some people said that Emperor Yasin was in such a long seclusion cultivation to carefully plan a conspiracy to wipe out the king of Chambord. Some people said that the king of Chambord's behavior of killing nobles had enraged the royal family, and the execution of the 23 nobles before the royal palace stepped over the line. Triggering the royal family could only distance Chambord from the power circle of Zenith and be destroyed in secret. Others said that the royal family was envious over the Chambord kingdom's strength, and they were planning to gradually devour Chambord. That was the only reason why the royal family endured the king of Chambord this long. Overall, various rumors were passed around at insane speed. In less than a day, almost every resident was talking about it in St. Petersburg. It was clear that someone was behind all this, trying their best to instigate division and separation. The chaos of the continent had finally affected the Zenith Empire. Even though Faye had been trying his best to take control over the chaos, and Emperor Yasin had become a demigod and stationed at St. Petersburg, they couldn't truly maintain the peacefulness and calmness over this land. The undercurrents were surging under the calm surface. After getting back to Chambord City, Faye took a day off and didn't manage the administrative duties, oversee the military, or cultivate. Instead, he got on the dragon-like Blackie and went on a field trip to the limitless forests and mountains behind Chambord with the beautiful Angela and Elena. Behind them, The 3 dragons led the Demon Beast Legion of Chambord that comprised of 42 supreme king-level demon beasts and followed along. Out of all the things that he got after coming to Azeroth continent, Faye felt like being able to marry these 2 beautiful queens who were kind, passionate, and loving was his biggest achievement. Since the very beginning, a sense of danger pressed down on the king, and he had to keep himself busy and run around, trying his best to make Chambord survive in this chaotic world. He didn't have much time to relax, so he rarely had time to spend with his wives. Whenever he thought about that, he felt guilty and a little ashamed. The patrol of the Demon Beast Legion above the limitless forest and mountains behind Chambord would occur once every other day. When Faye wasn't here, Angela and Elena would do it as well to make sure that the area within 500 kilometers of Chambord was safe for the citizens of Chambord and foreign adventurers to venture into. Right now, a pair of foreign adventurers in the forest below looked up at the sky, and it seemed like the sky and the sun were completely covered by the giant bodies of the demon beasts. As a result, they couldn't help but discuss in envy. Wow! Look, Chambord's Demon Beast Legion. Huh? The number of Supreme King-level demon beasts that are on patrol increased a lot today. 1, 2, 3, 41, 42. Wow! A total of 42 Supreme King-level demon beasts. They are equivalent to 42 Moon-class elites. So powerful. Today, there is probably an influential figure of Chambord patrolling with the demon beasts. Normally, there are only about 5 to 6 demon beasts on patrol. Could it be that the king of Chambord is on patrol this time personally? Ha ha ha! The legendary king of Chambord returned to Chambord City 3 months ago. While we are on this topic, Chambordians are so lucky. They got a great king, and he instantly changed their bad situation. In this chaotic world, human lives are as cheap as grass. Right now, the real chaos isn't even here yet. When the power of evil engulfs the entire continent, Chambord City might be the only pure land in Zenith. Yeah, I want to join Chambord and instantly become a resident. But I'm not far off. With a little more contribution points, I will be able to send in the application to the revenue department. Ha ha ha, we are close. After becoming residents of Chambord, we will be able to move our loved ones to Chambord City after we serve the military for 3 years. By then, they will be protected by King Alexander of Chambord as well, escaping wars and tragedies. Yeah, brother. Let's work harder and achieve our goals. 3 days later, the 1,000 soldiers of Chambord went through the sacrificial ceremony and honored the flag, and they performed a lot of rituals before the expedition according to tradition. Then, amidst the cheers and blessings of the citizens of Chambord, they stepped onto the path of the expedition to the Angie Empire. Riding on a handsome white horse, Faye, who was in a simple and white royal robe, drew out his sword which was hanging by his waist, and he raised it high as he issued the command. Instantly, cheers got even louder. To Chambordians, this expedition held historical meaning. Ever since the establishment of the Chambord Kingdom, it was on the receiving end of beatings. In the past, enemies invaded Chambord, but Chambordians couldn't launch counterattacks against enemies who were outside of the Zenith Empire. In this chaotic world that was ruled by the laws of the jungle, it was an indescribable shame. Today, the Chambord Kingdom finally took the first step forward under the leadership of the great king of Chambord. Chambordians were cheering for their king and seeing off their loved ones. This wasn't a sad scene. Every single Chambordian believed that under the command of King Alexander of Chambord, who was invincible, this expedition troop would obtain the victory, even though the expedition troop was only made up of 1,000 soldiers, and their enemy was the Angie Empire that was a dominating force on the rise. Andrew, please go on the expedition with our king without worrying about home. It doesn't matter if it is going to be 1 to 2 months or 1 to 2 years. I, Jenny, will always be your lover. This was the reminder that a girl had for her lover. Son, remember, always listen to our king's command. It doesn't matter how dangerous it is. Even if you might die, you have to protect our king and make sure he is safe. This was the reminder that a father had for his son. Haha, Dad, don't worry. I will return with honor. I will make you and the kingdom proud. Jenny, relax. When I return, I will marry you right away. By then, you will be the wife of a general. Ha ha! The soldiers who were going on the expedition were fearless and full of confidence. They didn't look like people who were walking onto a dangerous battlefield. For one, they believed in their king. Also, they had confidence in their strength. They were the most elite soldiers of Chambord and star-level warriors. In any other empire, they would at least be battalion commanders in legions. In Chambord, they were only ordinary soldiers. However, they liked it this way. Amidst the Chambordians' passionate cheers, the expeditionary troop finally left on their journey. All the gold saints appeared in the expeditionary troop, and they passed Zuli River using a teleportation array, appearing in the new city on the other side of the river. The troop was moving really fast. In less than half an hour, the flags of the expeditionary troops had already disappeared below the green horizon that was created by the grass on the vast plain. In the sky above Chambord City, the two queens sat on the back of Blackie and looked in the direction that the expeditionary troop had traveled. Flying beasts, beauties, white clouds, and blue sky created an outstanding image as a gentle breeze blew by. At the same time, Brooke and Bast stood in front of the watchtower on the defense wall, and mysterious smiles appeared on their faces. Now, the bugs that are hiding in the city should be moving soon, right? Bast asked. He was wearing a faint blue robe, and it was made by Chambord's royal clothing shop, accentuating this handsome old man's fanciness and prestige. As Chambord's strength continued to climb, these officials who had been in their positions for a long time gradually obtained the auras of top-level decision-makers. In the old days, Bast was only a fallen noble, and he had to run around and try his best to help his future son-in-law to keep the throne. As a result, he was always exhausted, and he didn't have a high status in Chambord. Now, he was one of the few people in Chambord who were only one level below the king. Also, since he was now the father-in-law of the king, his status was even more prestigious. Few people in the Zenith Empire, let alone in Chambord, dared to offend this handsome and gentle old noble. His Majesty is intelligent and has planned for all scenarios. Now, we just have to execute the plan. However, while it will be easy to clean up these bugs, we must focus on the migration to Sky Castle. That can't be done that easily. Brooke caressed the cold battlement on the defense wall before rubbing his temples. The fast growth of Chambord pleasantly surprised these loyal and experienced officials, but the issues and duties that they had to handle also increased a lot in number and complexity. Therefore, they had to run around endlessly and with no breaks like a perfect spinning top. Fortunately, the king cared a lot about these old officials, and he gifted them many mystic potions. On top of eliminating fatigue, these potions improved their body compositions and extended their lifespan. Therefore, even though these officials were all busy, they didn't regret anything and had a great deal of gratitude towards the king. Ha ha ha! What kind of honor will His Majesty bring back this time? Brooke thought to himself and was motivated. He was a member of the military. Deep down in his heart, he wanted to expand the territory of Chambord and increase the kingdom's influence. If he didn't have to stay back and stabilize the kingdom, he would have gone with the king and battled with the enemies. We don't need more honor and credit. I just hope that they can all come back safe and sound. After all, Bast was a noble who liked literature, and he was more humanitarian and disliked war. To him, the current situation that Chambord was in was already good enough. Despite the differences in their hopes for and vision of the kingdom, their friendship was solid. This wasn't the first time that they stood in front of the watchtower on the defense wall to see the king off. Every time they stood in this position, they had different emotions. The one that left the most profound mark in their minds was their first time seeing Fei off when the latter led the troop to participate in the competition at St. Petersburg. The expeditionary troop of Chambord traveled 500 kilometers a day on average. On the fifth day, they finally arrived at the southwest border of Zenith. That night, the expeditionary troop camped in a valley that wasn't far from the border. As the sky got darker, more than a dozen phantom-like figures appeared on both sides of the valley, and they stared down at the campsite of Chambord that was well lit with their black eyes. The burly figure in the lead sneered, "Humph! Do they want to conquer our Angie Empire with so few soldiers? The king of Chambord is a moron, right? Someone sneered and mocked. Ha ha ha. According to their traveling speed, the trap would be all set up when they are close to the border of our empire. It will be a trap set by a god. Just wait for these morons to jump into it. They have a demigod. So what? Do Zenitians really naively think that our Angie Empire has no one else after Emperor Karamov died? Ha 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 ha. It will be too late when they realize. Ha ha ha. The entire northern region of Zenit will be ours. These black figures were all elite scouts of Angie. Ever since the first day that the expeditionary troop of Chambord went on the road, they had been monitoring it while passing all the information back to the Angie Empire as fast as they could. Stop speaking. Separate and continue to monitor. We can't miss any actions that the Chambordians take. That burly figure said in a low voice. Just as he was about to give more orders, his expression changed, and he shouted in surprise, "We need to run." Before he could finish speaking, several air-piercing noises created by arrows sounded in the night. At the same time, more than a dozen streaks of chilly light dashed toward these scouts. Screams echoed in the night, and blood spilled. 3 scouts of Angie couldn't dodge in time, and their hearts were instantly pierced. Then, the enormous momentum of the arrows pushed their bodies backward and nailed them onto the ground. Their limbs twitched, and it was clear that they couldn't live anymore. "We are discovered. Back off. Immediately retreat." The leader of the scouts was angry and terrified. The calmness of the last 5 days made them lower their guard, and they didn't expect that these Chambordians would discover them. The leader of the scouts instantly issued orders to retreat. Unfortunately for them, it was too late. The warriors of Chambord, who had powerful warrior energy flames engulfing them, surrounded these scouts from all sides, blocking all possible escape paths. Also, moon-class elites appeared in the sky and stayed there, and their powerful auras made these scouts feel desperate. Ordinary warriors couldn't imagine the power of moon-class elites. Fighting against them as star-level warriors was like smashing an egg on a giant rock. These elite scouts of Angie were only star-level warriors, and they couldn't do anything. The battle didn't last that long. That night, the scouts of Angie and the scouts of other forces who were following and monitoring the expeditionary troop of Chambord were taken out. At the same time, the expeditionary troop of Chambord disappeared under everyone's nose. When the various forces received the news, it was already the next day. The Angie Empire reacted fast, and many teams of elite scouts were sent out. A lot of manpower and resources were spent on finding the whereabouts of this troop, but they got nothing back. The sky was clear, and the white clouds were beautiful. Everything was calm. Suddenly, 2 giant silver shindy dashed through the sky and disturbed this peacefulness, revealing their vicious bodies that looked like giant whales swimming in the ocean. After a short pause, they sped up again. Their bodies instantly blurred, and they disappeared as if they traveled into the void. The acceleration process only took a little over 10 seconds, but the 2 Shinji traveled more than 50 kilometers. In less than a day, the 2 giant silver Shinji were already close to the border of the Angie Empire miraculously. Below the 2 Shinji, it was the territory of a level 2 empire named Dietfurt that was connected to the Angie Empire. The territory of the Angie Empire was less than 50 kilometers away. Standing at the bow of Black Pearl, Faye looked down at the land below and was in deep thought. The empires that paid attention to this upcoming war would never expect this. After this expeditionary troop of Chambord moved forward 500 kilometers per day on average for 5 days, it instantly traveled close to 70,000 kilometers and got incredibly close to the Angie Empire. Also, those gold saints who came out of Chambord City with the expeditionary troop all quietly went back to the kingdom. A lot of people would think that the Chambord kingdom put all its strength in this war and had low defensive capability right now. If these people dared to mess around, they would pay a hefty price. On top of the Gold Saints, Chambord also had the massive Demon Beast Legion, Elena, who was a Burning Sun Lord that wasn't famous in the region, and the masters of the Blackcloth Shrine such as Batistuta. The Shinji traveled fast, but there were always 2 oval, faint silver energy spheres around the 2 barges. Standing on the deck, Even ordinary people couldn't sense the strong wind or feel any turbulence. Also, after the mad scientist's laboratory improved and upgraded the Xianxia, the energy spheres now could achieve a certain degree of stealth. Therefore, while the Xianxia were traveling tens of kilometers in the air, the people on the ground couldn't detect anything. The warriors of Chambord all looked at their king in admiration. It could be said that they worshipped their lord. While riding on the Xianxia, traveling became very easy as all the usual hardships were eliminated. The soldiers were ready to camp in the wilderness every night and travel to the Anji Empire slowly. So this came as a pleasant surprise. Travel, usually the most torturous part of expeditions, became enjoyable all thanks to their king. After the Xianxia dashed forward once, the two barges moved forward slowly as they prepared for the next explosive jump. Fei was about to turn around and go back to the command center, but a strange light appeared in his eyes as he suddenly detected something. "Pass my order. Stop traveling and stay stationary in the sky until further instructions." The order was quickly passed down, and Cyclops, that was following Black Pearl, received the order as well and stopped. The soldiers guarded their positions and controlled the weapons on the Xianxia, waiting for Fei's further instructions with their guard up. Fei stood at the bow. The more he sensed, the more complicated his expression became. "Alexander, what is going on? Why did we stop?" Akira and Kane walked out of the cabin curiously. Behind them were a little more than a dozen university students who qualified for going on this expedition. "You guys probably sensed it too, right? It seems like something strange is happening," Fei said with a complicated expression. As soon as he finished speaking, Kane and Akira's expressions changed as well. Fei's words validated their guesses. "Let's go and check it out." "I hope we are wrong," Kane said with a serious expression. It was rare to see such an expression on him. The southern border of the Dietfurt Empire, this place had a hilly terrain. Since it was summer, green could be seen everywhere. The trees were vibrant, and the grass was thriving. This was the best season of the year. This town was very close to the border, and it was a place where the citizens of Dietfurt and Anji did a lot of trade. It should be very noisy and prosperous, but it was tranquil today for some reason. The crowds of mercenaries and adventurers could no longer be seen, and the farmers who should be working in the fields were also nowhere to be seen. As a breeze blew by, messy garbage got blown into the air. It seemed like this town was empty. Suddenly, a streak of golden light flashed in the sky and landed on the ground. After the energy flames disappeared, 5 to 6 figures appeared. Fei was in the lead. The king sniffed. It seemed like he was trying to catch a smell. The king's expression was solemn. After a while, he turned around and nodded at Kane and Akira before saying, "It seems like we are right. However, we have to observe for a bit longer to get the real answer. Let's go and check out the town in front of us." Kane walked forward quickly with a walking cane, showing that his mood was not normal. Soon, this group of people arrived at the entrance of the town. The gates of the town were made from heavy lumber, and they were tied together by metal brackets. Right now, it was completely open. The defense wall of the town was about 6 meters tall, and it could block the attack of ordinary beasts and bandits, making the residents of the town feel a bit safer. However, the guards who should be standing by the gate were nowhere to be seen, and no one was patrolling on the defense wall. Only the flags were fluttering in the wind and making a series of flapping sounds, breaking the deadly silence. Kane quickly walked toward the town. At this moment, a black figure suddenly dashed out of the wooden gate and pounced at this white-haired old man. "Be careful!" Fei shouted to warn Kane as he raised his finger. Bam! That black figure exploded, and it turned into a cloud of green smoke before dispersing into the air. The other people in the group quickly walked up and protected Kane and Akira in the center since they didn't have any combat abilities. "An undead dog that is controlled by the power of the darkness," Kane said with gritted teeth. Even though it was dangerous, he got a clear look of the attacker and sensed that thick evil energy. Fei and Akira looked at each other, and they each knew that the other was confident in their hypothesis. Even if Kane didn't say anything, their guesses were validated. Behind the gates of the town, many figures were wandering the streets aimlessly. They were slow and dull, and their movements were strange. "They are Zombies! Oscar instantly screamed. This university student liked learning about all kinds of strange creatures and things, and he read many weird pieces of literature and knew many magic spells and monsters. After getting one glance at those figures, he recognized them. The other university students got nervous. On Azeroth continent, zombies were created by undead mages since they were corpses controlled by these mages. Like the plague, the zombies were highly contagious. In the history of the continent, there had been several massive undead creature catastrophes where many people were turned into undead creatures. The most famous ones almost transformed the continent into the paradise of undead creatures and made humans go extinct. In legends, similar incidents occurred in the mythical era as well. Therefore, both gods and demons were afraid of the undead. That was why undead energy was a type of forbidden energy that belonged to Hell and the Grim Reaper, and why undead mages were feared and hated by humans. Even the most influential people would be scared when hearing the word zombie. Therefore, it was understandable why these university students were nervous. Watch this location and have your guard up. Torres, protect the university students. After giving those orders, Faye, Kane, and Akira walked toward the herds of zombies. When they were about 50 meters away from the herds of zombies, those zombies seemed to detect something. As if they smelled the odor of living beings, they let out a series of deep, loud roars and moved toward the three, trying to surround them. Right now, Faye was still in barbarian mode. He raised his hand, and a gush of immense power tied down about a dozen zombies, restricting their movements. Then, the three got close and observed the zombies. After a while, if I'm not wrong, these zombies were all the residents of this town, Kane sighed. They were turned into zombies less than 10 days ago, but they can't be saved anymore. This town is done. All the residents had been corroded by the evil energy and got turned to undead creatures. I can't sense any life energy in them. It wasn't any ordinary undead magic spell that turned them into this. I'm sensing the dark aura that only belongs to Hell. It is too familiar. How come this magic exists in this world? In the end, Kane's sigh turned into gasp. He was stunned. Akira was frowning, and it seemed like her eyebrows were twisted and tied together. Suddenly, she reached out her finger, and a streak of white flames shot out, targeting a staggering zombie that was about 20 meters away. As if it were severely injured, that zombie roared and fell to the ground. That was the only offensive magic spell that Akira knew, and it was only effective against the undead creatures in Diablo world. That is right. They are dark undead creatures that should only exist in Diablo world. How come they appeared in this world? After testing, Akira was sure of the situation as well. Now, both Kane and Akira were shocked to their cores. They all experienced the terrifying power of evil in Diablo world, and they knew how destructive it was. The Diablo continent was a bright and peaceful world on the rise, but it was shifted onto the path of destruction after the power of Hell invaded it. The undead magic spells in Diablo world created many undead creatures. Together with the demons and monsters, the entire continent fell in a short time. This dark power was the nemesis of humans and all other life forms. Like a poison without an antidote, this dark power was an unstoppable nightmare, representing utter destruction. Once it appeared, a world was about to end. How did this evil power suddenly appear in this bright and lively world? Is this continent going to walk on the same path as Diablo world? Akira and Kane thought to themselves. People would only know what to treasure after losing it. As people who witnessed the tragedy that overtook the Diablo continent and the prosperity of Azeroth continent, they didn't want to see what happened to Diablo world repeat here. In their minds, this was like a second home to them. Faye also frowned as he continued to observe carefully. He could see that the zombies wandering around further away were still wearing clothes and armor as they did when they were still humans, but their flesh turned greenish-gray and started to rot. The joints of these zombies weren't flexible, as if they were made of rusted metal, and their expressions were dull and stiff. Some of their eyes already fell out of their eye sockets, and they were dragged by thin strands of flesh and hanging beside their noses. Their nails overgrew and looked like sharp knives, reflecting the sunlight and appearing to have a metallic texture. They are identical to the weak undead monsters in Diablo world zombies. They look the same and have the same auras. except for their clothes. This gives me a bad feeling. Faye had a good understanding of the undead magic on Azeroth continent. It was different from the spell used to turn these people into zombies. If the elements used by the undead magic on Azeroth continent could still be recognized as one of the natural elements, then the evil and dark energy that appeared here wasn't accepted and permitted by nature. It was extremely destructive and corrosive. Shit! If this energy spreads throughout the continent, what happened to Diablo World will occur on this land as well. Also, I'm sure that it won't take that long. Perhaps this world will end in 1 to 2 years. Cain woke up from the initial shock and said confidently, "Let's go into the center of this town. We can come to a conclusion later." Faye realized the severity of this incident, but he didn't want to draw any conclusions without more evidence. He switched to paladin mode, and the holy aura spread out around him. The dozen or so zombies that were tied down by him earlier were turned into dust particles before they could do anything, and they were blown away like sand sculptures. Right now, Faye's paladin character was at hell mode level 100. When facing these zombies that were equivalent to monsters at rogue encampment in normal mode, he could kill them with his vast aura alone without using skills. The three of them wandered around the town and found that the situation was even worse than what they had imagined. Not only did all the residents die, but the evil energy also corroded the animals. Like the plague, the evil energy spread all over the town, and it was beyond terrifying. It seemed like almost nothing could counter this evil energy. Huh? There is a big one here. When they walked past the central square in the town, a giant, green zombie suddenly rushed out. Its skin already hardened to the degree that it was comparable to bone armor, and it was strong. Also, it was about 3 meters tall, and its fingernails were close to 1 meter long. Like 10 godly weapons, they could easily cut through things. This giant zombie had the strength of low-tier 2-star, and it was 3 to 4 times the size of ordinary zombies. Also, as if it had some intelligence, more than a dozen regular zombies surrounded it like its guards. Damn it! Is this zombie corpse fire? Faye was shocked. This giant zombie resembled that small boss corpse fire in the Den of Evil, the first quest at Rogue Encampment. Is this a coincidence or something else? Faye thought to himself. Faye suddenly felt like he was thrown into a cloud of mist. Nothing was as simple as it seemed. It seemed like everything he was seeing was slowly merging with Diablo World, making him have an ominous feeling. All the secrets that he couldn't comprehend before were slowly revealing themselves. Holy bolt! Faye raised his hand, and a mass of silver energy flew out. It was the unique skill of the paladin, and it was a natural counter to undead creatures. That giant zombie instantly fell to the ground. At the same time, Akira and Cain showed their hands, taking care of 7 to 8 ordinary zombies around them. Huh? What is going on? Faye suddenly appeared surprised. After he killed Corpse Fire, he sensed that a streak of subtle and minuscule energy left the corpse of that zombie, giving him a familiar sensation. Subconsciously, he raised his hand and tried to pull it in, and this streak of energy dashed over and disappeared into his hand naturally. What is going on? Faye fell into deep thought after experiencing this. Although this energy came from the corpse of an undead creature, it was surprising that it didn't contain any evil power. Instead, it was extremely pure. After it merged into his body, Faye carefully monitored himself and didn't feel uncomfortable, and nothing strange happened. That streak of energy successfully merged with the divine power of the paladin. Since Faye was powerful and bold, he dared to try to absorb this energy. If it were anyone else, they would have been scared to death. After all, any energy leaking from undead creatures might be highly contagious, and the people who touched it might be turned into undead creatures themselves. Faye didn't tell Cain and Akira of his findings yet. Instead, he continued to wipe out all the undead creatures that were turned from animals. Perhaps these little zombies were too weak. Although Faye could sense the energies in their corpses, these energies were too minuscule. They were shattered by the wind when they leaked out. Faye tried to pull some masses of energies over to absorb, but nothing changed or happened. Why is this? In less than half an hour, all the undead creatures in this town were wiped out with a master like Faye present. In the end, Fei went to the center of the town and used paladin skill, cleansing. The vast holy energy dashed in all directions, completely engulfing the entire town. Soon, everything that the evil power contaminated was purified. When the group left, the town had restored its former presence. However, dead people and animals couldn't be revived. Unfortunately, the group didn't get any clues as to what caused this incident. An unnamed pressure appeared over everyone's head like a dark cloud. Fei had a feeling that this expedition to the Anji Empire wouldn't be that easy or simple. After returning to the Xianxia, Fei didn't issue the order to move forward quickly. Instead, he ordered Black Pearl and Cyclops to glide forward at the minimum speed. At the same time, the king summoned undead mage Hazelbank, who was stationed at Chambord City, asking the latter to quickly come to the Xianxia through the long-distance teleportation array on the barge. Below the Xianxia, it was like a sea of green forest. This was a forest between the Anji Empire and the Dietfurt Empire. Although it wasn't huge and was smaller than the limitless forests and mountains behind Chambord, a lot of demon beasts lived in it. When people and merchant caravans wanted to go through it, they had to hire guards and mercenaries to protect them. Although there weren't Supreme King-level demon beasts in this forest, the chirps of birds and roars of beasts could be heard all the time. But today, the forest was tranquil. Streaks of dark and evil energy surged into the sky, forming many black clouds that weren't going away anytime soon. When the Xianxia got to this place, Fei ordered the barges to stop moving forward and stay in the sky. Such thick, dark, and evil energy. It is about 1/10 the level of the hell energy at normal places in Diablo world. After ordering the Xianxia and the soldiers to stay still, Fei dashed down toward the forest with Cain and Akira like a light beam. This forest is completely polluted. All the demon beasts that were living here were turned into undead creatures. Cain randomly looked at a few places and concluded. He was too familiar with this evil energy. That is right. The evil energy appeared less than half a month ago. However, this little forest has completely fallen. Unless a legendary and majestic paladin on the level of Griswold appeared and used cleansing, the dark and evil energy won't be dispersed. If I'm not wrong, that town we went to earlier was affected by this forest. The evil energy first corroded this place, and it leaked out and turned all the residents and animals in that town into undead creatures. This is the terrifying power of this dark and evil energy. If it is not contained effectively, it will be spread all over the continent like the seeds of dandelions in the wind, Akira said seriously. This forest is now like the headquarters of the dark and evil energy. If it continues to exist, the region with a radius of 500 kilometers will fall into the control of evil in less than a month. Fei didn't say anything. He only carefully observed his surroundings. The entire forest's color changed, as if the trees and plants on the ground were frostbitten. Even though they didn't wither completely, they were gray, looking lifeless and chilly as if someone painted them. Also, they appeared broken and rotten. This forest that represented vitality and energy turned into a wasteland. For some reason, this scene made Fei reminisce a familiar feeling. However, he couldn't pinpoint what it was on the spot. Hiss! A level 3 red-headed python that was controlled by the evil energy dashed out of a gray bush. This demon beast was completely turned into an undead creature. Its red head turned blackish-green, and its fine silver scales became black as well. Of course, the most drastic mutation was its size. Its size tripled just like its strength, and its body was as hard as iron, ultimately losing any sense of pain. It was controlled by a murderous spirit, and it wanted to destroy everything that it saw. With its black split tongue flickering, it pounced toward Fei, Cain, and Akira. Holy bolt! Fei killed this mutated python with a flick of a finger, and a streak of energy that others couldn't see leaked out of this python's corpse and merged into the king's hand after he waved. What is going on? How did this evil energy appear in this world? Is someone behind all this? Is this a coincidence? What secret is hiding in this forest? This forest was filled with savage and mutated demon beasts. After the three people searched for a while, they didn't discover anything special. We must purify this forest. Otherwise, if the evil energy spreads out, all the living beings in the region will be turned into undead creatures. Although Chambord City is hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from here, it will be affected if this situation isn't controlled. It will become an immeasurable catastrophe if left unattended. First, I need to confirm what the energies that leak out of the corpses of these undead creatures are. What is going on? After thinking for a bit, Faye told Kane and Akira about his discoveries about these mystic masses of energies. He asked if they had some findings, but it was clear that they couldn't sense anything. Could it be that these two seniors are from Diablo world so that they couldn't sense this type of energy? This was the only explanation that Faye could come up with right now. Therefore, he must try to validate it again from another angle. After failing to identify the source of the evil energy in the forest, the three of them returned to the Xianxia in disappointment. Right now, undead mage Hazelbank had arrived on the Xianxia after using the long-distance teleportation array. Faye didn't waste any time and returned to the polluted forest with Hazelbank, Torres, and 100 elite soldiers. This isn't undead magic? Hazelbank concluded after carefully observing the surroundings and running some tests. As one of the high-level elders of the former undead godly palace, Hazelbank's understanding of undead magic on Azeroth continent had reached another level. His current strength had returned to mid-tier Burning Sun realm, very close to his previous peak. He could be counted as among the most knowledgeable undead mages. Since Hazelbank said so, Faye was sure of his own hypothesis now. Such a terrifying and dark energy. It is my first time seeing this. To my knowledge, no document on this continent has ever recorded this type of energy. God, it is unbelievable. It seems like it exists only for murder and destruction. Hazelbank was experienced and wise, but he was still shocked by the terrifying power of this energy. Give it a try. See if you can discover anything after killing these demonized and mutated creatures. Faye asked Hazelbank, Torres, and the 100 elite soldiers to kill some of the mutated monsters in the forest, but the finding puzzled him even further. No one was able to detect that type of energy which would leak out of the corpses of the monsters, let alone absorbing it. It seems like only I can sense that type of energy. What did I overlook? Or am I unique in any way? Faye pondered. What effect will this type of energy have on me after I absorb it? Can I really use it? Also, are all these related to that god which Emperor Karamov of Anji revealed before his death? Is this god an evil lord from Diablo world? Faye decided to figure everything out first. The expeditionary troop temporarily stayed above this forest that was consumed by the evil and dark power, and everyone on the Xianxia was on alert. Before moving into the Anji Empire, Faye was going to purify this forest completely. Right now, his paladin character was at hell mode level 100. Although this wouldn't be too difficult of a task, it required 2 to 3 days. Before doing this, Faye used the trained hummingbirds to pass orders to the letter office, asking them to move all manpower in the cities around this forest to investigate the source of the mutation and pollution. With all that planned, Faye returned to the forest alone. In front of him was the gloomy and terrifying forest that was full of danger and undead creatures. Faye took a step forward, and golden energy flames flashed around him. A new set of armor appeared over his white robe, and Faye turned into a great paladin who was wearing corona, ornate armor, and wore traveler's boots. In one of his hands was Vortex Shield, and in the other was Caduceus. This was the Griswold's legacy item set for paladins. These were the items that the most honorable paladin Griswold used in Diablo world. Any paladin with these items would be able to unleash the maximum amount of power. With a golden, holy light around him, Faye sang the solemn battle prayers and used paladin skill. Cleansing. An infinite amount of light energy surged out of Faye's body, expanding in all directions like giant waves. As the center of the light energy, Faye looked like a god who was walking in the mortal world. Wherever he went, the darkness was cleansed, the evil was punished, and the chilliness was dispersed. Light and hope enveloped this land again. The power of a hell mode level 100 paladin was unimaginable. Under the empowerment of the Griswold's legacy item set, Faye's strength was on par with a demigod. This was the first time that Faye unleashed his full strength after he passed Hell Mode Diablo World as his paladin character. The vast and holy energy enveloped an area of 50 kilometers around him. Looking from above, it seemed like a god had appeared on the ground. Streaks of dark energy evaporated from the air like the dark smokes created by flames. All the mutated demon beasts and plants within the coverage of Faye's power whined and struggled in pain before quickly dying. This was Faye's limit. These creatures that were controlled by the dark and evil energy had already died. Even though the paladin was mighty, Faye couldn't revive them. The only thing that the king could do was to save their souls and allow them to rest in peace. The holy and solemn battle prayers resonated throughout the region. Paladin skill, cleansing, emitted an unlimited amount of divine power as Faye unleashed his full strength, and the vast aura dispersed into the area along with the energy, creating a phenomenon in the sky. If someone were looking this way from afar, they would vaguely see many holy and perfect angels fluttering their bright, white wings while dancing and singing in the holy light. This was the illusion that the paladin skills could create after they were mastered and used at full strength. In fact, every one of Faye's characters from Diablo World would create fancy effects when they were used in the real world. The fancy flames and terrifying power could always create unimaginable phenomena, completely different from the simple and crude visual effects in the original game. The effects in the real world were hundreds of times more stunning compared to the game. In the sky, everyone on the Xianxia was shocked by what they were seeing. For many of them, this was their first time seeing the king unleash his full strength, and they felt like their minds were hammered. Even Hazelbank, who was a Burning Sun Lord, Faye's guard Torres, and Kane and Akira, who thought they knew Faye well, were all surprised to see this, let alone the elite soldiers. To the people living on the Azeroth continent, the power that Faye was demonstrating was close to the gods who lived in the mythical era. None of them knew when the king obtained this forbidden power that could rival gods. At this moment, they suddenly realized that this man's power had gone beyond their wildest imaginations. It was unbelievable. Time quickly passed by. Just as he had estimated, the king used 2 full days and finally purified this forest. Although Faye's paladin character was mighty, this process was laborious. Faye used more than 100 bottles of full rejuvenation potion to replenish his stamina and mana, and he was still exhausted to the maximum after this was done. This was equivalent to battling an opponent who was on his level for 2 full days without sleep. However, Faye didn't regret doing this. The reason was that he discovered something crazy. He couldn't even believe it at first. Faye discovered that his strength increased. After both his barbarian and paladin characters reached Hell Mode level 100, Faye had tried many different methods in Diablo World. It didn't matter how hard he battled. He only obtained some insignificant items. The amount of experience points that his barbarian and paladin characters had was hard stuck, not moving forward at all. As a result, Faye gave up the idea of killing monsters and trying to increase his strength in Diablo World after his characters passed Hell Mode. Now, after purifying the entire forest, Faye was pleasantly surprised to find that his paladin character's strength that hadn't increased in a long time moved a little, rising by a tiny amount. Faye was instantly elated. Soon, he figured out why this was happening. After killing those undead creatures, the streaks of mystic energies that leaked out of their corpses merged into Faye's body and helped his strength to grow. Those streaks of pure energies that didn't have any attributes perfectly merged with Faye's paladin character's holy power. Without creating any conflicts, those streaks of pure energies turned into holy power and could be controlled by Faye perfectly. With Faye's current level, he could sense everything in his body clearly. He would catch even the smallest change without error. Faye was sure that he wasn't hallucinating. His strength did increase, even though this increase was minuscule and could be neglected. The level of growth was about 1/10 of that in Diablo World for killing the same number of weak monsters. If this holds true, I can still increase my strength without Diablo World as long as I continue to kill these mutated monsters. If the mutated monsters are strong enough, I will get stronger fast. This discovery made Faye overjoyed. He discovered a new path. Soon, he forced himself to calm down. The evil energy that mutates living beings is too similar to the power of hell in Diablo World. Are there any connections between the two? I can obtain experience points by killing monsters and demons in Diablo world, and the increase in the levels of my characters reflected in the growth of my strength in the real world. Likewise, I can kill mutated creatures in the real world and harvest this kind of mysterious energy. Both ways of getting strong are so similar. Could it be? Faye felt like a cloud of mist enveloped his mind, and the truths were flashing in the mist like lightning bolts. They were hard for him to catch. It seems like the Diablo world isn't that simple. From now on, I feel like secrets are going to be revealed soon. After Faye gathered his thoughts, he didn't hurry back to the Xianxia. To be on the safe side, Faye ordered Black Pearl and Cyclops to land in the forest that he just purified. All 1,000 elite soldiers were moved out, doing a complete search from one side of the forest to the other, not leaving any area untouched. This time, they made some discoveries. When Captain Jack Sparrow and Little Luffy wandered to a valley in the center of the forest, they discovered a few strange, altar-like structures. After the holy power purified the forest, these altars completely lost their functions and effects. However, judging from the patterns and engravings on them, they are magic devices used for summoning. Also, the structures of these devices and magic principles used aren't popular and well known on the continent nowadays. In addition, there aren't any marks on them that signify the passage of time. It seems like they are less than a month old by looking at their appearance. Hazelbank and Kane carefully observed these structures and came to this conclusion. The area around this valley is the most purified, and the holy elements in this valley are a bit weaker compared to other places. It means that the dark and evil energy was the most intense here, and it cancelled out a lot of the power of cleansing. Akira returned from observing the area and reported to Faye. If I'm not wrong, these damaged magic devices are the source of the pollution. They were the ones that summoned the evil power from the abyss of hell. Faye frowned and said, "Then, this doesn't make much sense. Why didn't we discover this place early before I used cleansing? We searched around the forest when we first came. If we discovered this place earlier, we might have been able to get more information and solve the mystery. This is pitiful." It is clear that this valley had been hidden by a type of mystic energy or a unique magic array. When we scanned around with our spirit energies couldn't penetrate it or discover its existence. After all, the three of us didn't walk around the entire forest. Kane quickly came up with the explanation, and he was disappointed as well. Just like what the king had said, if they discovered this place before the king purified the entire forest, they might be able to figure out who was behind all this. It seems like there is no need for continued searching. Just as Faye was about to issue a new command to tell the soldiers to retreat to the Xianxia, a streak of faint red light dashed down from the sky. When it was about 100 meters away from Faye, it turned into a cute and smart bird that was the size of a thumb, and it landed on Faye's shoulder while chirping. A hummingbird. It was one of the key components of the information delivery networks of the letter office. After taking off a delicate storage ring from this bird's neck, Faye injected a trace of magic energy into the ring with a unique frequency. He got the intelligence report from it and read it. Then, he said to everyone, "The pollution of the evil energy has spread to the border of the Angie Empire. The evil energy has already invaded the land of Elanians. Also, some evidence shows that the royal family of Angie is involved in this terrifying change. Pass my order. Return to the Xianxia immediately. Then, we will move forward and pass the forest, entering the Angie Empire as soon as we can." In the northeastern region of the Angie Empire, this was a plain right beside the forest. It was the land that belonged to Elanians. The river from the forest supplied the water for irrigation of the land, making this place one of the most famous food-producing areas in the region. Elanians established the prosperous Alania Empire here 500 years ago, and the brave, perseverant, and peace-loving Elanians left many heroic and tragic stories on the continent. This fertile land was one of the critical assets of Elanians, and it was also the thing that brought them wars and tragedies. Every few years, a force would wage war against the Alania Empire. This empire literally survived through trials and tribulations. However, the Elanians' good luck ended about a year ago. Its neighbor, the Angie Empire, suddenly rose in power, and it turned its eyes to this piece of fertile land that produced a lot of food. Under the onslaught of the mighty military of the Anji Empire, the Alanian soldiers were defenseless and got crushed. The Alanian Empire that had been around for about 500 years entered its weakest phase, and Angians conquered this old empire in less than 2 months. Although Alanians never stopped resisting, they had to admit that Angians already controlled this ancient yet fertile land. About 3 months ago, it was heard that Emperor Yasin of Zenit killed the vicious and cruel Emperor Karamov of Anji, and Zenit was going to wage war against Anji. Also, it was rumored that Imperial Marshal Saint Alexander of Zenit would be leading an expedition to the Anji Empire. Therefore, the Alanians who were still trying to resist the suppression of Angians and redeem their honor cheered in excitement, and flames of resistance burned all over this land. Unfortunately, a sudden catastrophe almost wiped out all the excited Alanians. Undead creature catastrophe. The terrifying undead creature catastrophe swept across more than half of Alanian's former land in less than 10 days. Millions of Alanians fell into dangerous situations, and they saw their loved ones and friends become murderous and mindless undead creatures under the corrosion of the evil power. Then, those undead creatures ate all the living beings around them. The pain was unimaginable. The ruthless Angians who controlled the region occupied the giant cities that were protected by tall defense walls, using the magic protective arrays to defend against the dark and evil energy. They enjoyed beautiful clothes and good food, and they gloated over Alanians' misfortune. Also, to prevent the evil energy from spreading to Angians, they kicked out many Alanian civilians from the cities. Like always, the sun emitted limitless heat energy, shining on the boundless plain where grass grew. As the wind blew by, the grass seemed like a green wave. However, this fertile land no longer had its former vitality. The zombies wandered the plain aimlessly, and they let out meaningless deep roars from time to time. The rotten smell of corpses permeated the air. Except for zombies, no other moving creatures could be seen on the ground. The broken corpses could be seen everywhere, as if they were piles of haycock made of straws on an autumn day. Also, mutated cats, dogs, and mice with red eyes ran through the corpses and devoured the rotten flesh and broken limbs. In the sky, many vultures flew over like a herd of dense locusts, covering the sunlight. They screamed in excitement as if they were participating in a grand party. Looking at this scene, these vultures were the only creatures that had control over their bodies. However, it was clear that if they continued to eat the rotten, black corpses on the ground, they couldn't escape from the fate of being corroded and turned into undead creatures. This fertile plain was gradually transforming into hell in the mortal world. In this situation, even the gods had to admit that humans have strong persistence and vitality. When they were pushed to the limit, they would be even tougher to kill than cockroaches. In this hell-like environment, some Alanians still survived and lived like the mice near the end of the world. They weren't affected by their loved ones who turned into zombies, and they survived this disaster so far. However, they had to endure the fear of death that could occur at any time, and they lived on for their loved ones who died for them and their race. At noon, not far from the border between the Dietfurt Empire and the former Alania Empire, there was a messy stone beach. On the edge of the stone beach, behind a tall bush that was shivering in the wind, a few pairs of bright eyes looked through the tall grass and observed the area while hiding in a little stone cave. Also, some drooling noises and stomach-growling noises sounded. Moments later, the stone plate that was used to block the entrance of the small stone cave was pushed out, and 3 thin kids crawled out. These 3 kids were wearing ragged clothes. The kid in the front was a boy who looked to be 15 to 16 years old. His black hair was messy, and dry grass could be seen on it. Right now, his long robe was full of holes, and many small wounds were on his face. However, his eyes were bright, making him look smart. He was wearing a pair of deer leather boots that were clearly too big for him, and the top of the boots was tightly tied by strings, making sure that they wouldn't fall off if he ran. Like an old hen protecting its small chicks, this black-haired boy protected the 2 little girls behind him. These 2 girls were about 4 to 6 years old. "Brother Leo, I'm so hungry." "Yeah, Brother Leo, I want to eat roasted duck." The 2 little girls behind black-haired Leo were wearing 2 dresses that were too large and not fitting for them. These two girls' skin was whiter than Leo's, and their blonde, curly hair held some dirt and dry grass. Under the illumination of the sunshine, they looked like two cute angels. Their pinky cheeks had dirt on them, making them look tired. Right now, they stood behind Leo timidly. It was clear that these three kids hadn't eaten anything in a long time. Their lips were dry, and they were staggering a little. The two girls had intense fear in their eyes, and their small bodies shivered nonstop either because they were scared, or they were too hungry. At the moment, they looked like two frightened bunnies. After hearing his two sisters' words, Leo braved up. He carefully climbed onto a tall rock and looked around. Seeing that nothing strange was happening, he turned around and said, "Don't worry. I will go and find food for you right now. Listen to me, all right? Go back to the stone cave and wait for me. If I'm not back, don't come out or make any noises." "Got it." The little girl named Keely looked up and grabbed onto Leo's robe while asking anxiously, "Brother, will you not return after you leave like Mom and Dad? I'm scared." The other girl named Dilly also thought of something and tightly grabbed the back of Leo's robe. She said with tears on her face, "Brother, I'm not hungry anymore. Don't go. Don't ditch Keely and Dilly. Please, if you go, we will be scared. What if those monsters come?" The boy named Leo bit his lips and acted calm while wiping the tears off his two sisters' faces. After helping them fix their dresses, he whispered, "Don't be scared. Keely and Dilly, you must be brave. I'm only going out to find food. Maybe I will find a roasted duck. Just stay in the stone cave, okay? I will come back for sure before it gets dark. Perhaps Mom and Dad will come back as well." After encouraging the two little girls, Leo finally got them to return to the stone cave despite their fear. Then, Leo moved a few big pieces of rock to block the entrance, leaving only a small hole for ventilation. Lastly, he got a handful of dry grass and scattered it around the entrance, hiding the small stone cave even more. After making sure that the area looked as natural as possible, he bent his back and hid in the tall grass that was to his waist when he was standing before slowly moving forward. Now, drips of crystal-like tears rolled down the boy's face, washing some of the dirt off his face and leaving two tear trails. Unlike his two little sisters who were still little and childish, he knew that their parents who hadn't returned for 2 full days must have died in the hands of monsters. Now only he could protect his two little sisters. "Mom, Dad, please bless me while the stars are embracing you. I have to find food. I have to help my sisters to survive." Leo thought to himself while hatred and anger appeared in his eyes, "The damn Angians caused this disaster." Every single Alanian believed that Angians destroyed the Alania Empire and released the terrifying plague and undead creature catastrophe, trying to use this vicious and cruel method to wipe out the resistance forces of Alania and conquer the wills of Alanians. These damn bastards. Alania will never surrender. The boy had some warrior foundations. Although he wasn't a star-level warrior, he was nimble and quick like a smart cat. With high awareness of his surroundings, he moved close to the edge of the forest. Usually, if people wanted food, they should go to the nearby towns. However, Leo flipped the script and did the opposite, moving toward the edge of the forest where there were fewer people. He knew that, in this undead creature catastrophe, most of the residents in the towns turned into zombies. The places with more people in the past were now filled with zombies, and it was more dangerous for him. Although mutated demon beasts lived in the forest, there were fewer of them near the edge of the forest. Also, not all the animals and beasts in the forest mutated. Some wild animals were living on the edge of the forest. If Leo were lucky and could catch a wild animal, he and his sisters would have enough food for 1 to 2 days. As he got close to the edge of the forest, he paid more attention to his surroundings. About 500 meters away, for human zombies were wandering around. From their clothes, Leo could tell that they were probably hunters when they were alive. Before they could return home after the hunting trip, they were attacked by mutated creatures and got corroded by the evil energy, turning into zombies themselves. Most of the hunters are stronger than normal people, so it is harder for them to be turned into zombies. These people should have been injured on the hunting trip and were weakened. It is quite unlucky for them that they got corroded by the evil energy. After surviving in this terrifying environment for a few weeks, Leo had some understanding regarding this undead creature catastrophe. He knew that warriors who were much stronger than normal people had a higher chance of surviving. Of course, didn't matter how healthy their bodies were, if the undead creatures such as zombies injured them, they were done for. Leo looked at the knives and sabers on these zombies enviously, and he controlled himself and put away the thought of trying to get them. Although he and his sisters would have a higher chance of surviving if they got weapons, he was currently no match for those hunter zombies since he was hungry and weak. As long as he kept a long distance of a few hundred meters between him and those zombies, he wouldn't attract their attention. After looking around carefully, he picked a few frequent paths for animals and set up some small traps. In the last few months, his father brought him here to hunt small animals such as rabbits and big mice. Therefore, Leo knew how to do all these things. After finishing all the setup, he started the long wait. This was the only thing that he could do. If he didn't rely on traps, he couldn't capture any animals in his current state. Unfortunately, it seemed like Leo's luck wasn't that good today. After waiting under the hot sun for 2 to 3 hours, he still got nothing. He licked his dry lips and patted the deerskin leather water flask, and he decided to go and get some water right now. He had to return to the stone cave before night. At night, the activates of the mutated creatures and zombies would become frantic and aggressive. With his back bent, he continued to move forward carefully. The water in the rivers was already polluted and couldn't be used. Therefore, he had to find some spring water. Leo knew a hidden spring water source, and the water quality was excellent. In the last few days, he and his sisters survived on it. This trip took him more than 40 minutes. Fortunately, he didn't run into any mutated creatures and zombies. However, his heart sunk when he returned to the traps. None of the traps harvested anything. The sun is going to set in a little over an hour. If I can't find food before the sunset? Thinking back to his 2 little sisters who were hungry and scared in the dark stone cave, Leo got anxious. He knew that he couldn't wait anymore. I need to get closer to the forest. There are more animals there. Disregarding his safety, Leo decided to risk it this one time. Otherwise, his 2 little sisters who were extremely hungry might not last until the next sunrise. He disassembled the traps and tied them on his waist. Then, he got closer to the edge of the forest cautiously. There were some small forests about 2 kilometers away. This was the outer range. If he moved forward for about 10 kilometers, the trees would be much taller, and he would really be at the edge of the big forest. It was said that the dark and evil energy occupied this forest. Although something strange occurred in the forest 1 to 2 days ago, and some people claimed that they sensed the aura of the holy god, it was meaningless. Elanians already lost hope and trust in the holy church and the holy god. In this catastrophe, even the priests of the holy church got turned into zombies. When Leo was about 200 meters away from the small forests, he suddenly detected intense danger. While wind-howling noises sounded, a black figure dashed out from the side and jumped at Leo. Instantly, a stinky and disgusting odor permeated the air. Mutated demonic wolf? This is the outer edge of the forest. How can this creature appear here? Leo was only an ordinary boy who was about 15 years old, and he had never experienced such an incident before. Level 3 demonic wolves only lived in the depths of the forest, and they should never appear here. Leo turned his head subconsciously in fear, and he saw the giant mouth of the black demonic wolf with black saliva dripping down and the white and sharp fangs that reflected sunlight. This poor boy felt like his legs turned to jelly. He tried to dodge subconsciously, but he felt a burning sensation on his back. The boy's heart sunk. He knew that he was done. The evil power would even corrode a star-level warrior and turn the warrior into a zombie if the mutated creatures injured this person. Judging from the burning sensation on his back, Leo knew that he was injured at that moment. The roars of the demonic wolf sounded behind him, and he sensed the disgusting and moist air that was coming from that bloody mouth. The boy's body froze, and he couldn't move. However, at this moment, he felt like everything around him slowed down. He thought back to his 2 little sisters who were still waiting for him in the dark stone cave. They were so young and they lost their parents. If they lost him without food and warmth, they might not be able to see tomorrow's sun. I have to live. I can't die. Hilly dilly, my dear little sisters. If I die, how can you live? A power sudden ignited in Leo's body, and this boy rolled to the side at this critical moment. However, the burning sensation on his shoulder told him that he was injured again. This mutated demonic wolf tore off a big piece of his flesh, and blood gushed out of the wound instantly. Leo was only a boy who had some warrior foundations. Facing a mutated demonic wolf that was close to the level of a 4-star warrior, dodging twice was his limit. His chance of surviving was equal to 0. The boy turned around and tried to flee. However, the kiss of the demonic wolf caught him again, quickly pushing him onto the ground. The claws on the front paws of the wolf pierced into the boy's chest, and the black saliva dripped onto his neck. The terrifying red light in the demonic wolf's eyes brightened, and the knife-like sharp teeth slashed down at the boy's neck. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I can't protect my little sisters anymore. The boy felt desperate and gave up. At this moment, something unexpected happened. Whoosh! An air-piercing noise sounded, and Leo felt light again. He turned his head subconsciously and saw that the level 3 mutated demonic wolf was dragged away by arrows that were shot from the depths of the forest. Ordinary sabers couldn't even cut into the necks of the demonic wolves, but those ordinary-looking arrows pierced this wolf's neck and nailed it onto a giant rock. It was clear that this wolf wouldn't survive. Who is it? The boy struggled to sit up, and he looked in the direction where those arrows came from. He saw a team of 4 to 5 warriors who were wearing delicate white armor. They were shouting something as they quickly walked out of the forest, and the person in the lead was holding a bow. It was clear that the arrows which killed the demonic wolf came from him. Who are they? They aren't speaking the language of Alania. Are they the damn bastards of Angie? The boy thought to himself and quickly shook his head. No, I have heard of the language that Angians use, and it doesn't sound like this. Are they warriors from the adjacent Dietfurt Empire? The warriors in white quickly walked to Leo's side. Then, some signals were passed out, and this boy who was barely able to stay conscious saw many warriors in white walking out of the forest, and these mighty warriors in white surrounded a black-haired young man. This young man was extremely handsome, and he had a friendly smile on his face. Leo sensed an indescribable yet majestic aura from this young man, as if he were a perfect god in the stories of the traveling poets, and godly light shone around him. Even those arrogant nobles and knights of Alania couldn't be compared to this young man. With the last bit of consciousness, Leo saw this majestic young man walking towards him. After hearing the reports from the warriors in white, this young man reached out his hand, and a streak of warm golden light shot out of his palm and entered Leo's body, making the latter feel comfortable as if it were a mother's touch. Then, Leo fainted,